This is the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metrics Cut. Hi all, welcome back to the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metrics Cut. I'm your host Shreshta, and today we have a very interesting episode. We have two guests joining us for the first time, and it's Barry Thomas and Rachel Dalton from Kantar. And Barry is the senior retail thought leader, and Rachel is the head of retail insights at Kantar. Together, they co-host a podcast called Retail Soundbites, and it's very interesting. You should definitely check it out. And today we're going to discuss a lot about the state of CPG brands in the US, what consumer expectations look like, what the future holds, and a lot more. So let's jump right in. Hi, Barry and Rachel. Welcome to the Digital Shelf Insider podcast. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you. I am super pumped that I have two guests joining in today. We're going to discuss around the state of CPGs in the US, what's happening, what's going to happen. Very exciting times here. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Shreshta. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. So the first one I have is like inflation and tariffs are some of the big concerns in 2025 as we see. How do you think, what are the factors that, kind of influence online shopping behavior for CPG brands, especially in terms of price sensitivity and shifting preferences between premium products and private label products? Rachel, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So inflation and tariffs are definitely key concerns. They continue to be concerns. I mean, we're seeing inflation, especially in the US market, come down on a number of categories, but it still persists. And obviously with tariffs, shoppers are concerned that prices will go back up or continue to be high. And so there's just a mix of concerns overall when you look at the macroeconomy. But if you look at everything all together mapped out, the top concerns that shoppers have right now are really on prices of food and everyday essentials. Like though that definitely tops the list and continues to top the list. And there's still quite a bit of concern about the economy. There's some levers that have gone up and some levers that have gone down. But we're talking about all shoppers as well with that, with the concern. Even higher income shoppers are pretty stretched as well and have less discretionary income. So we're just seeing an environment where there's still continued caution on spending. There's more of a focus on saving money. There's certainly a very specific focus on price, and not necessarily always the specific price point, but just the value for the money that a shopper's getting for what they're purchasing.
Makes sense. What do you think, Barry? How is it?
And I would just build, I think you kind of have to look at it. Yeah, what I would just build on that is when I think about inflation, like some or many folks, you kind of look at it like post-pandemic. Since, the pandemic, I think it's easily, you can make the case that for sure, affordability has been a problem. There's a cost of living crisis, certainly in most markets. And while the Trump tariffs, have certainly added to this a bit, I will say we kind of overstated that because today in the U.S., it's not like we're seeing a radical increase in inflation. I think the bigger issue is since the pandemic, the cost of living for most FMCG categories has gone up significantly, in large part because of the price increases of FMCGs and the cost of goods associated with that. So I think like that structural time period post-pandemic has been an issue. Subsequently, that's definitely been, a tailwind for store brands for sure, in the US and other modern trade markets as well. Much more of an emphasis on essentials, so that really plays to someone like Walmart and Amazon, not so much to Target. And I think who's often left out in this discussion on inflation are the most vulnerable in our data, and something we're talking to a lot of clients about is the low-income consumer. They're really feeling the impact of inflation overall post-pandemic today. And that's who we have to be most concerned with. And, how they shop looks a lot different because of just this sort of cost of living crisis.
Right. I'm just gonna pick a couple of categories and see what are the kind of shifts in consumption habits that's taking form lately. One in my mind is health, wellness, and a beauty category. What do you think are the shifts that's happening in this particular category?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing, if you just look at health and beauty categories or within overall consumables, these are the top consumable growth categories. So when we define health and beauty as OTC and personal care fall, of course, there, as well as prescription drugs. And if you look at just personal care and OTC as like common CPG consumables, um, these are these are categories that are not being affected by inflation. You're actually seeing high unit volume growth in these categories. But we've seen a trend, since the pandemic. We know wellness is a massive global trend for 30, 40 plus years now. But it has a nuanced view, and it's continuing to gain traction as shoppers, consumers are really taking more control over their own personal wellness journeys. And as this continues to become a big priority, you'll continue to see growth, specifically in these categories. And we expect that growth over the next, say, 5 years to be fairly strong as well in terms of unit growth.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Shrestha, we refer to this really as this modern health trend. And there's a lot to modern health. We can go deeper if you want to talk about that, but it's been a bit inflation proof. I mean, everything kind of associated with modern health is continuing to perform well because consumers are placing an importance, obviously, on their health, and especially with digital commerce channels, supplements, health and wellness, beauty, a part of that perhaps, continues to be such a strong performer. You just don't want to be going against modern health. And some brands have learned, a painful lesson with that.
Right. Uh, Another category in my mind that comes is about out of home and on the go CPG products. So, what has changed from 2024 to 2025 in this particular product?
Well, I think we're definitely seeing cutbacks, particularly as consumers are being they continue to be very choicey about how they spend. So we're seeing cutbacks in terms of, eating out at restaurants and ordering takeout. There's much more, and if they are going out, they're deal seeking, they're looking for value. But that's definitely an area where we're seeing, that's the areas where shoppers at least say they'll cut back when they're looking at ways to budget.
And just to build on that, Shrestha, last year, I was calling it a restaurant recession, certainly in North America. And I think that's even deepened, this year. So this year, traffic overall to restaurants in the US or North America will be, flat at best. And, sales increases or revenue increases in general will be, you know, probably, a bit negative to flat. It's just been a difficult operating environment for restaurants in terms of just, value for sure. And think about it, we talked about it on our podcast last week. Through Q1 in the US, restaurants have lost 1 billion visits, if you can believe that. There's several different sources on that. And they're pivoting obviously to food service at retail is a big part of that. There's just more food occasions at home. It's cheaper, it's more affordable. And I just think there's two players that have really captured this because they've just been perennially good with value. Taco Bell, they have an incredible brand. They have a large focus on value, and they continue to be like one of the top performers, certainly in QSR. And then Chili's has really taken, that's sort of a casual concept, casual dining concept. They've taken a lot of traffic from QSR restaurants because they've had these 3 for Me deals around $10 or a bit more. And they're just taking traffic from QSR restaurants with a higher quality offering at a value price point. I want to say over the last 2 years, their traffic's up something like 30%. It's just pretty amazing. So a value meal now equals survival for restaurants, and McDonald's has struggled with this. So it's value way at the top for all restaurants, no question.
Right. Uh, we briefly spoke about how tariffs, inflation is impacting customers and how price sensitive they are at this point. So, with so much of options available in the market right now, brands monetizing on trends and micro trends, micro trends, getting very hyper personalized. How are consumer expectations evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think so consumers are certainly they want the best value for the best price. So whether that falls, whether a national brand can deliver that, whether a challenger brand delivers that, whether private label delivers that, and that's the utmost. They want a product that they can trust that's going to deliver the benefit that they're looking for at a great price, kind of all in one. So they want everything. I think that's one big uh, takeaway for shoppers is they want the best that they can buy because they're very discerning and they're looking at their overall budget. So I think, you know, brands overall could be much more strategic about how they communicate value and really be much more strategic about what value means to that individual shopper, leveraging the data that they have to be much more personalized to a specific individual. Value isn't always about the lowest price, but it is about, again, that overall perception of value that an individual is looking for. So there's lots of different ways we could talk about how CPG brands can better appeal to kind of shifting shopper expectations. But I think the other thing, too, that we're seeing with shoppers is, well, social commerce has grown substantially, as we know, in the online space and social commerce specifically within the overall social media because people are spending their time there, they're interacting there, and they're looking for opportunities to discover new products that they are finding on social and then maybe translating onto retail or buying via the social platform itself. So I think shoppers also they want to feel that you're authentically communicating with them. They want to feel that they're excited and inspired by shopping. It's not just about going in and buying something and leaving. They want to have sort of an overall experience as they're shopping. And that's definitely a shift that continues to rise.
Very true.
And maybe just a bolt on, like bigger picture, the way we're looking at brand building over here. And, Kantar, in large part, is a sort of brand building marketing company providing insights, measuring brand equity, et cetera. So, for sure, it's still largely about quality of your brand, obviously, but meaningful difference. Shrestha, especially in the context of these challenger brands, which are taking up so much growth, store brands by retailers. If you're a CPG brand, you truly have to have meaningful difference. And you have to prove it. You have to have credentials. You have to be talking about it, whether that's with an influencer as a partner or just in your own channels. It's never been more important to have meaningful difference. You'll hear Kantar talk a lot about that. There's an entire framework for that. And generally, the way we're coaching brands to grow based on our Brand Z report and our Kantar blueprint for brand growth is, in its most simplest form, is you just want to predispose or I should say, drive penetration of the brand to more people. That still works. More people buying your brand really works. Two is just being more present, and that could be, certainly in large part digital channels, live streaming, TikTok, availability, and more. And then you want to find new spaces. What are those white spaces for the brand that you can move into? In many cases, those are adjacent to your current brand space, but you for sure have to have meaningful difference, and then you want to build the brand certainly through those three vectors. No question about it.
For sure. I'm just picking something from your podcast, Retail Soundbites, from the very recent episode that you had, where you shared that, another challenge that brands are facing is with product discovery. It's happening through AI, through multi-channels, through various different ways, especially in 2025. So, they're spending a lot on the ad also. And it impacts the way consumers perceive these messages. So how exactly do consumers take in so much of messaging from different platforms, different channels? How does that kind of impact the brand's image, or how do brands really struggle with brand loyalty lately in that aspect?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, some of what we're seeing out there is just this, I don't think e-commerce platforms are quite there yet, but the idea of pulling cues from social media in a bigger way on the online store front, I think will be um, kind of a key thing as e-commerce retailers are looking to continue to rebuild and relook at the way they're communicating on their actual storefront, on their digital shelf. So, you know, I think that's a massive area of opportunity for a traditional digital retailer, as social commerce is really kind of where it's at right now. And even when you look outside the U.S. and you look at some global marketplaces, they're bringing a lot more excitement, interest, video content, authentic communities. They're winning the attention economy, which is something that a lot of the analysts on the Kantar team here have been kind of considering and writing about. And it's all about, how do you draw somebody in and have them want to spend more time with you, as opposed to just going into the store looking for something and leaving. So I think that's where the discovery, the more traditional online e-commerce retailers can bring in those cues and really build out their store ecosystems. Um, I wouldn't say like a social platform, but definitely more like a social platform, where it's a place where a shopper wants to spend more time in that kind of discovery mode. I think we'll see more of that kind of in the future of commerce.
For sure.
I just think as a brand, you really want to play in and be a big part of your customers' loyalty program. And so for CPGs, I want to be a part of what Walmart Plus is doing. They have a very large, growing, more loyal customer base, obviously with Amazon as well. But it also, extends to restaurants. If you're a restaurant, supplier to someone like, Panera Bread, which is doing really well, in the U.S. over the last several years, they have a fantastic loyalty program, with a beverage program. And so if you're a part of that beverage program, you're going to like all the repeat usage. I want to say at least 25% of Panera's transactions now are connected to that loyalty program. So, you know, that is a powerful sort of pipeline for your brand. If you get in early and can seed yourself as a part of those baskets with Walmart Plus. We've heard that from CPG suppliers. I was early with Walmart Plus. I was buying retail media, et cetera. And then you sort of have, you're drafting off their loyalty, which is always a good thing.
Right. I have one last question for you both, and that's about, like, at Metriska, we work with a lot of review data, and we do review analysis and trend analysis for brands, and it really helps them, just not in getting what is the post-purchase feedback consumers feel about a brand, but it also helps them in their messaging as well as product innovation, packaging, all of that. So do you think brands are really looking into this kind of data very closely?
Really good question. And yeah, I think so, more so than 3 years ago. I think just about every FMCG is really valuing, user generated content, reviews. They're leveraging that for their own copy to make it better. They're in many cases using it on their own sites to share, as a proof point of the quality of the brand. Uh, that's almost like a foundational sort of skill set you have to have as a digital marketer. And obviously all that translates also into, offline sales. And so, there's even some retailers, that will have, UGC on their digital shelf tags in Europe, just kind of showing you sort of as a proof of point, if you will. And the other piece I would just make, other point is just, especially the challenger brands, they do such a good job of, leveraging creators. And in many cases, creators have a higher sort of trust than just a generic review from someone you've never met. But this creator, I'm following this creator, like a part of my ecosystem. So challenger brands have really kind of reinvented a bit over the last several years, CPG marketing, leveraging creators and reviews, which is really powerful. And I think more of the bigger manufacturers are now doing that. And as a part of that, you kind of want to get to this idea that you call manufactured virality. And that's where, the brand voice is coming through hundreds, maybe thousands of influencers. And you can kind of scale that. So much of what you're talking about really started online. I mean, all of this, for obvious reasons, but I'll often look to challenger brands that are leading in this area. Rachel, we talk about it a lot with our guests with that.
Yeah, and Barry, you've talked too a lot about CPG leaders treating ratings and reviews as like that frontline shopper insight system because you're getting that feedback immediately, and the recency of that feedback matters. We've seen that as well. We've seen, a big CPG reporting huge purchase intent lift when it looked at what users were, user generated content across the entire shopping journey. We're seeing a lot of brands go into the very specifics and really data mining the reviews that they're getting directly from their consumers to, innovate and create new products around. The brands that are responding directly to consumers are kind of generating even more loyalty. And even when they're responding to more negative feedback, which is really critical to show that they're listening. So there's so many things that, were ways, I guess, that brands are tapping into just that immediate and direct, specific feedback from their consumers, not only from a demand side, but also kind of an innovation side and a media side. So it's really, really critical. It's it's with the kind of data backed and technology behind the scenes, you can really mine those stories much more efficiently than you ever have been able to, even a year or two ago.
Well, just one build I think, those reviews, by obviously consumers, they matter even more in terms of where we're going. So the next era of commerce, we like others are calling it, agentic commerce and the agentic web. And really your data is going to be really so much more of your marketing. In fact, some people are calling this metadata marketing because so much of your brand assets digitally will be crawled by bots and agents, not humans. In fact, today, I posted an article on LinkedIn. I mean, 1/3 of brand traffic is now basically bots and it's sort of early agents. And they really like authenticity and data. And when you look at your brand AI visibility, which is sort of a new phenomenon, so often those agents, those bots, they're crawling like Reddit, which is really a review at mass scale. So I think what you're asking about matters even more going ahead.
Right. That also gets me to one more question. So every other brand, whether you take the challenger brands or the legacy brands, they are in different phases of AI adoption. Some are testing it in internal teams. Some have like really good teams established already. What is the base that they should adopt it?
Well, it's AI or terminal. Think about that. Either I adopt data and AI as a capability, or I may not be around. So I just think we're just seeing, for sure, rapid adoption of generative AI across every element of the CPG value chain, especially marketing. I mean, just today I was just reading the latest on Unilever and Nestle. I mean, they're just using digital twins, generative AI, to produce far more personalized content at scale at radically reduced prices. Humans are still involved, still in the loop, but so much of those creative assets are being developed by machines. And so I just think more and more, you have to have data and AI as a core capability today and more so ahead as, we sort of, where data just becomes your brand really. And Rachel, I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at just online commerce or digital commerce and the very near future, it's going to be materially, completely changed because of generative and agentic AI. So what we see today is going to be drastically different, versus what we see a year from now, 2 years from now, for sure.
Yeah, very interesting times.
And lastly, I think just one last data point on that, Shrestha, is, it's not just about what brands are doing, it's about what consumers are doing. So you'll see different data points showing that right now, approximately at least half of shoppers are using these AI tools for commerce purchases. Like, what's the best shoe? What's the best price? So, we have to go back. What is the consumer using? And more they're using, those AI tools, which brands, just have to understand and be a part of.
Right, for sure. Thank you so much, Rachel and Barry, for taking out this time and joining me and all of us. It was just wonderful having this conversation. Very rich, insightful conversation for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreshta.
We've come to the end of the episode. If you loved what you just listened to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Monday with a really awesome guest. Stay tuned until then.